What if I told you there's a car that promises the flexibility of petrol, the silence of electric, and the space of a family hauler, yet somehow still feels like a puzzle no one has solved properly? Meet the BYD Seal 6 DMI. On paper, it looks like the kind of car that could sneak into Europe and upset some very well-established rivals. But here's the question. Is this the car that finally makes plug-in hybrid estates genuinely tempting, or is it just another half measure dressed up as the future? That's what we're about to untangle, and I'll warn you now, the Seal 6 isn't exactly what it first appears. Some of its promises sparkle, others fall flat, and by the end, you might find yourself rethinking what you thought you wanted in a family car. So let's rewind a moment. Only a few years ago, hardly anyone in the UK had even heard of BYD. If you had asked someone on the street, they probably would have said it was a new phone brand, not the world's largest electric car maker. Fast forward to today, and BYD is throwing cars into Europe faster than almost anyone can keep track of. In fact, this Seal 6 DMI is the 8th BYD model I've had my hands on in just a short span of time. 8 cars, each one slightly different, each one trying to fill a gap in the lineup. You start to wonder, does BYD know something we don't, or are they just throwing everything at the wall until something sticks? Now, the Seal 6 DMI. Let's start with the name, because that alone is a riddle. Seal 6. You'd think it meant 6 seats? Nope. 6 wheels? Definitely not. The 6th model? Not even close. There's no official explanation at all, and honestly, that feels a bit telling. It's almost as though the car itself is caught in an identity crisis. What does make sense is the DMI bit. That stands for Dual Mode Intelligence, which is BYD's way of saying petrol engine plus electric power. So yes, this is a plug-in hybrid. You can run it on electric only for short trips, switch to petrol when you need to, and theoretically get the best of both worlds. Here's where things start to get interesting. You can have the Seal 6 as a sleek saloon or as a touring estate. The estate is the one most buyers are expected to want, because in Europe, estates still carry that aura of practicality and family-first design. And this Seal 6 Touring has something unique going for it. It's BYD's very first estate car. That alone raises expectations. If you're going to launch your first estate into Europe, the home of the Volkswagen Passat, the Toyota Corolla Touring Sports, and countless others, you better make it good. So let's break it down, starting with the powertrain. BYD gives you 2 battery options. A small 10 kilowatt-hour pack, officially good for around 34 miles of pure electric driving, or a larger 19 kilowatt-hour pack that stretches that figure closer to 65 miles. Those numbers aren't bad, but here's the twist. They're actually worse than the figures you'll see in BYD's own Seal U DMI SUV. That's unusual. Normally, you'd expect an estate to keep pace or even edge ahead. Still, both batteries use BYD's now famous blade technology. That means lithium iron phosphate chemistry, which trades maximum range for durability and safety. And that's a real advantage because these batteries are designed to be tougher and more stable than the more common nickel, manganese, cobalt type. If you go for the bigger pack, you can plug into CCS fast chargers. But don't get too excited. The maximum rate it accepts is just 26 kilowatts. That means a 30 to 80% top-up takes about 23 minutes under ideal conditions, which isn't bad if you're grabbing a coffee, but not exactly groundbreaking either. The smaller battery, no such luck. That one won't fast charge at all. There is one neat trick though. The Seal 6 can give power back. With an adapter, you can turn its charging port into a household socket. Handy if you want to power up camping gear, tools, or even keep your fridge running during a power cut. It's a clever extra, and one of those details that could make a real difference in everyday life. Now, practicality. This is where estates live or die. The Seal 6 Touring offers 500 liters below the parcel shelf, stretching to 675 liters if you load right up to the roof. Fold the back seats flat, and you're looking at a cavernous 1,535 liters. Those are solid figures. The rear seats fold in a 60-40 split, and there's even a ski hatch for sliding longer items through. You also get a height-adjustable boot floor, handy for loading, though the difference in height isn't huge. Compared to the saloon, the numbers don't look dramatically different at first glance. 591 liters in the saloon versus 500 in the estate, but the shape makes all the difference. The estate gives you wide, tall access and the freedom to pile luggage up to the roof, something a saloon just can't match. So if you're looking at family holidays, sports equipment, dirt, even moving house, the Estate clearly wins. But how does it stack against rivals? That's where things get tricky. The benchmark is still the Volkswagen Passat, especially in plug-in hybrid form. In theory, the Passat's boot is a massive 690 liters, but, and here's the catch, the PHEV version drops to 510 liters, barely more than the Seal 6. Then there's the Toyota Corolla Touring Sports. Not a plug-in hybrid, but definitely a competitor. Depending on which engine you choose, the Corolla Estate can give you close to 600 liters. So while the Seal 6 isn't class-leading, it's not out of the race either. Step into the back seats and at first glance, things feel generous. Legroom, almost as good as a Passat. Stretching out is easy. Headroom, you'd need to be over 6 feet to feel cramped. The flat floor makes life easier for the middle passenger too. But then you sit down and you notice something odd. The bench feels low compared to the high floor, which pushes your knees up. It's not painful, but it does feel awkward, especially on longer trips. The space is there, but the posture feels off. Still, compared to many rivals, this rear cabin is airy, light, and family-friendly. Up front, things look very BYD. A digital driver's display sits behind the wheel, though the fonts and numbers are on the small side. The central infotainment screen measures 12.8 inches in standard form or 15.6 inches in higher trims. That larger one even rotates, though in practice it's more gimmick than game changer. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto only work in landscape anyway. The system itself looks sharp, responds quickly enough, but hides too many functions behind fiddly menus. Adjusting the climate, for example, is buried in icons so small you almost need a magnifying glass. BYD has added a 3-finger shortcut gesture to change the fan and temperature, but it still feels like a workaround rather than a polished solution. Material quality, though, is surprisingly solid. Soft-touch surfaces mix with hard plastics, and while there's a faint plasticky smell, the whole cabin feels sturdy. Build quality stands shoulder to shoulder with a Volkswagen Passat. No small achievement for a brand still proving itself in Europe. Storage is good too. Big door bins, a deep tray beneath the center console, wireless charging pad, 2 cup holders, and a decent cubby under the armrest. So far, the Seal 6 Touring looks promising, but all of that depends on one thing: how it drives. And here's where the cracks begin to show. On the road, the Seal 6 inherits the same setup as the Seal U DMI SUV. Soft suspension, but not soft in the way you want it to be. Instead of soaking up bumps gracefully, it lets the body float and wobble around at low speeds. You feel constant movement, never really settling. And when the suspension rebounds, it does so harshly, jolting you more than expected. At motorway speeds, it calms down a little, but it still can't compete with the poise of rivals like the Passat or Corolla Touring Sports. Add in the suspension noise, thuds and clunks over imperfections, and the illusion of refinement begins to fade. Handling? Light steering makes parking a breeze, but it's also lifeless. You don't get that reassuring feedback when you're pushing through corners. It's easy, but it doesn't inspire confidence. And yet, the plug-in system itself is one of the Seal 6's strongest cards. On electric power, it's smooth, quiet, and eager off the line. The petrol engine joins the show seamlessly, almost unnoticed. Performance is more than enough for daily life. 181 horsepower with the smaller battery, or 209 with the larger one. 0 to 60, 8.9 seconds for the small pack, 8.5 for the bigger one. Not headline grabbing, but more than adequate. Here's the thing. In isolation, the Seal 6 feels fine. You can drive to work, take the kids to school, pack the boot for a holiday, and never feel underpowered. But when you compare it side by side with the best estates in Europe, the differences become clear. The Passat feels more controlled. The Corolla feels more balanced. The Seal 6 just doesn't quite match the polish of its rivals. Now, pricing. This is where things could swing back in BYD's favor. Official UK numbers aren't confirmed yet, but expectations put the Seal 6 somewhere between £34,000 and £38,000. The Estate will cost a couple of thousand more than the saloon. Compare that to a Passat PHEV at around £44,000, and suddenly the Seal 6 looks like a bargain. The Corolla Touring Sport starts at £32,000, but remember, that isn't a plug-in hybrid, and equipment matters. BYD doesn't skimp here. Heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, and generous tech all come as standard. Trim levels really just depend on which battery you pick, with the larger pack offering the bigger infotainment screen and top spec. So where does that leave us? The Seal 6 is spacious, well-equipped, and aggressively priced, but it's let down by a driving experience that feels undercooked. If you value comfort, composure, and refinement, rivals still have the edge. Now, here's the paradox. On paper, the BYD Seal 6 DMI should be one of the easiest cars to recommend. It checks all the sensible boxes: space, equipment, safety-conscious battery tech, and a price tag that undercuts the big names. For many families, those things matter more than a finely tuned suspension.